What I'd like to do now is, if anybody has a question, I will do my best to answer it. Just stick your hand up. There'll be some people in the back with a microphone. Yes, sir. The question is, do I think there's any chance? It's time. Do I think there's any chance that all the people of the world will work together in discovering the rest of the universe? You know, our history would say no, because we have so many examples constantly in front of us of where we're doing a bad job of being the same species, where we're fighting over the same resources, or where one pocket of us has one thing that a pocket of the other one doesn't. And I think you can despair easily. It's easy to say it's terrible. But at the same time, look at this building behind me. The amount of cooperation that went in 1905 to finishing that and consecrating it, turning this parking garage into where we're sitting right now. We constantly find ways to cooperate to do magnificent things. Watch an orchestra play. Those people don't get along in an orchestra, but they recognize that the music is bigger than they are. And so they find a way to do their part to accomplish something that none of them could do by themselves. And when I first got hired as an astronaut, we were not cooperating with Russia. But a few years later, we decided it's going to be harder, but it's going to be better if we include Russia as part of the International Space Station. And we have saved each other's bacon multiple times. After the Columbia crash that killed the whole crew of the shuttle, after some of the Soyuz and Progress problems, we would have failed without each other. And the fact that Russia and the United States, within the last year, agreed together to extend their space station until 2024, at least. I mean, Russia and the US are arguing over everything, and yet they recognize that this music is too beautiful not to be part of, and so they're cooperating together. And I think we're going to the moon next, and hopefully when we do that, we will include China, and we will include India, because those big nations are on the edge of having that level of spacefaring capability, and it is better for all of us if we can let the challenge allow each of us to rise to a new level. So I expect so, and I certainly hope so. Is there a microphone in the back? Or do you have a question on a microphone? Oh, young man here, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
What do you feel when you left the space and the Earth in one world?
What do I feel when?
Left the space and the Earth in one world.
What do I feel when I left Earth and got into space in one word? Wow, one word. I would say, can I use two words? No, one word, okay. I would say honor. You feel an incredible privilege of honor to be one of the very first human beings to see our world for what it is. You are honored to be there. You are privileged to see something that magnificent. And you feel awestruck. And it never goes away. I still feel incredibly honored to have been trusted to go do that and see the world that way. Anybody have a microphone in the back they want to ask a question?
Over here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there any way of stopping Donald Trump from becoming president of outer space?
The gentleman asked, is there any way to stop a certain American from becoming the next president of the United States? Well, it's a democracy, fortunately, and the United States has been around for a couple hundred years, and they've had good presidents and bad presidents. They've had some really terrible presidents and some really magnificent presidents, but the country's still there. And they're the most philanthropic country on earth. And they do good things all around the world. And I lived in the United States for 26 years as a Canadian. So they're hugely imperfect. And the electoral process tends to bring out the worst in people. And I really hope that the person that they elect can stand up and do the job that the world is trusting them to do. The rest of the world is worried, of course. But fortunately, the president isn't nearly as powerful as most of the world thinks. They have a huge bureaucratic structure. You know, they have an enormous other electoral process. So we may not get the person that we would want if we lived there, but nothing is ever as bad or as good as it first looks. And I'm very hopeful that America will do the right thing. Yes.
I would like to ask how much time it takes to train, how do you say, a less capable person who gets to go on the ISS, like a space tourist.
How long does it take to train a space tourist? So almost everybody who flies to space is fully trained, competent. And in my case, I started, when I was a kid. I trained, I went to 4 different universities. I learned to be a pilot, to scuba dive, to speak languages. I became a fighter pilot. I became a test pilot. And then I trained for 20 years as an astronaut. And after all of that, I was ready to command a spaceship. But there are a few people who are almost as wealthy as a country. Some of the very wealthiest people on Earth. And in fact, Charles Simoni, who is a billionaire, who decided he wanted to fly in space twice. And so Russia said, what is the minimum amount of training we can give Charles to make him safe to fly in space? And in his case, it's about 9 months. When you get on Lufthansa and you sit in your seat and the flight attendant stands up front and gives you that little briefing of how to be a safe passenger, for a spaceship, that briefing lasts about 9 months. And that's about how long it takes. But you're not really a contributing member of the crew, but at least you can take care of yourself and not be a negative one for somebody else. So for anybody here, really, to fly on a Soyuz and to go live on station for a week and come back, it would take about 9 months and $60 million to be able, if you've got that in your pocket tonight. Maybe time for one more question, and then we'll do something else. Yes, sir.
Just talk. Basically, you're trying.
Okay, thanks. Basically, you're trying to dream came true, and you are in a good shape, so you still have decades to live. Do you still have a dream to come true for the future? So basically, what is your personal goal for the following years?
So what is my personal goal? I think everybody heard him. So let's see, my personal goal is to answer your question properly, and then I'm going to plug this guitar in and play a song, and I want that to go well. And so, I practiced earlier today, and I tuned the guitar, and because I know things go wrong. And we came up here, and we tested this equipment, and so I'm pretty sure it's going to work. And then tomorrow I'm going to visit with my Hungarian in-laws, which I think I hope that goes well. And then they're very nice people. And I want to go back to university. I've always been interested in paleontology and geology. And I'm writing a 4th book right now. And so that's keeping me busy. But about 5 years before I retired as an astronaut, that thing I just said was just, that's how I live my life, is get ready for the next thing. But about 5 years before I retired as an astronaut, my wife and I talked about, what do we love in life? I'd been an astronaut for 20 years, and I only flew in space for a few weeks at that time. But we loved what we were doing. So it wasn't space flight that we loved. It was what was happening every day that we loved. And so we thought, how can we have as much of that in our lives as possible? What makes us feel good? What makes us feel like we've contributed? And we made up a list. These are the things that we want to try and promote and encourage and have in our life as often as we can. And my bottom line to evaluate everything was, I want to be contributing to improving the quality of life for as many people as possible and making it sustainable. That was my bottom line mantra. And then, how can I do things that I love that will do that? And so I teach at university, and I try and share the experience of spaceflight through talks and music and books. I work with elementary schools all the time using Skype. We're making an animated series called It's Not Rocket Science to try and let people see some of the scientific ideas. We host a stage show called Generator where we have a comedy and science show, because you shouldn't just have to be a comedian to entertain people. The science of the universe is interesting also. And to me, really, the bottom line is, how can you do things that you love that influence other people to do better things with their own lives? That's what I try and do every single day. That's my ultimate goal, and to have a good time doing it. All right.